would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional, unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Welcome to the Sharing Circle podcast. My name is Arna Kaplan, and today I have the pleasure of welcoming Rikki Cooper, National Indigenous Engagement Manager for BGIS Australia, also known as APAC, to talk about Indigenous engagements in Australia. Hello, Rikki. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. And the first question I will ask you is, what is your journey in becoming the National Indigenous Engagement Manager for BGIS Australia?
Great. So I started with BGIS back in 2015.
Yes.
I started off as a contract manager for one of our local contracts here. I live and work remotely in remote Australia. From there, it was around 2015, 2016 that I was actually invited in to be part of our Reconciliation Action Plan Committee. From there, I transitioned into then being the co-chair, the chair, and then in February last year, Australia, we were fortunate enough to then have the position for a National Indigenous Engagement Manager to go permanent. So when I started with BGIS in Australia, we didn't really have too much of an Indigenous footprint at all across the business. So the journey, although it feels like it has been a long journey, has actually been quite quick on where we've come from to where we are today. And it's something that we're very, very proud of.
So when did Indigenous engagement start in Australia at BGIS, and why did it begin?
Yep. So from memory, it was about 2016 when we first started at writing our first Reconciliation Action Plan. And the reason that we decided to start writing that was because within Australia, there is a strong focus on Indigenous engagement across the country. Yes. And we started off with our Reflect and then Innovate wrap, which we're now on our Stretch wrap. So there's 4 layers to our wraps over here. And it was around having a look at what we as an organisation are doing. When you're looking at the word reflect, so reflecting on what we are doing and what we could be doing better. It's a 2-year plan across the business and nationally, and then from there over the years and rolling into the higher level ones, it's really, they look at the Innovate wrap, so you need to look at being innovative, then you look at the Stretch wrap, so we're in a position now where we're really stretching ourselves. Yes. As I said, it's also a platform where we can really monitor what we are doing and what we have done, and really look at areas of improvement on where we can do better as well.
Okay. Can you share any success stories or memorable projects from our Australian Indigenous engagement initiatives?
Yes. So as I said, when I first started with BGIS, we didn't really have any Indigenous engagement or any footprint around what we do and what we should be doing. So when I came on board as part of the committee, I said, my dream or my vision would be to have an Indigenous brand within our corporate brand. So when an Indigenous person then does, look at BGIS, they already know that by working for us visually, that there are no barriers, that they can bring their full self to work. So one of the things that I'm most proud of, as you can clearly see, is my background. Yes. And what we did is to really show, I guess, industry and external people to the business that we are committed to this. We actually engaged an artist to tell the BGIS story, which is what our artwork actually is. Would you like me to actually tell you what the artwork is about?
Of course.
Yep. So if I just move to the side here, because that blue little chevron in the middle is a reflection of the BGIS brand, so our core value. Yes. BGIS is obviously a global organisation, and we wanted to make sure that the story that we were telling, especially within Australia, was true to us and true to who we were, or to who we are. So that inner circle, and it's around that yarning circle, and you can see a couple of the items going out and then back in, and that's how we speak to ourselves. We look at our yarning circle and the core of our business at BGIS, and we make sure that what we are saying and implementing internally is all done genuinely and authentically. So we are actually all doing it for the right reasons, and by speaking about ourselves and making sure that we are doing things genuinely and authentically, that then automatically leans out to the wider business and external to BGIS. So the next, the larger circles, these circles off to the side, are also yarning circles, and what they represent are our core values, our clients, and then it actually goes off the screen, but our clients, our employees, and then the communities that we operate in. And then you can see these little footprints, which are kangaroo prints that then filter back into BGIS. So by what we're doing at our core and our foundation, if we're representing our values and working with clients that represent our values, our employees, we're giving back to community, it then all filters back into BGIS corporate. So I often speak of two cups, having a corporate brand and the Indigenous brand. Obviously, the corporate brand, we're here, to make money. We're here to build the business, build the brand. With our Indigenous engagement, we empty all that out, and we really do start with those relationships. So what sort of relationships we have with the communities that we operate, and how can we genuinely and authentically give back to those areas and those people.
And what you're saying about the artwork and having the BGIS logo just behind, incorporated in the artwork, is a great thing. It's like a fusion of both art and BGIS mentality too. So,
and we also, obviously, as you can see, the artwork is now on some of our uniforms. I wear the full branded shirt with the artwork. We have one that's slightly less, I guess, in your face is what we say, where it's a blue one and it has cutouts and panels of the artwork. The artwork can now be found on some of our vehicles, so our fleets across the country as well. And our original artwork is actually hanging in World Square in Sydney, and I've actually spoken to new starters within the business and who are Indigenous, and they said by walking in and seeing those vehicles or seeing the artwork, they feel that there's barriers dropped, that they can bring their full self to work, and that they feel like they're going to be heard, which is really great, because within that space around even engaging employees or contractors, we want to make sure that they are comfortable, and I guess visually that shows that we are on this path and we are on the journey with them.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of seeing one of the picture where I think you're posing in front of one of the trucks, one of the BGIS trucks that has a Aboriginal art on it. It was part of our project. We built a toolkit to better engage. It's in Canada, to better engage with the communities in Canada. So you helped us in this, and
so that program is very similar to our reconciliation action plans. Our reconciliation action plans covers respect, opportunities, and governance. So making sure we're doing things respectfully, that we are providing opportunities, and making sure that obviously then we're tracking and we're making sure that we are on track on where we want to go.
And I saw you have artwork on some t-shirts too, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so that's across our uniform range that we have them. And we also then, we are a part of creating the Bennelong Cup, which is a football game, I guess, helping Indigenous students through school and then looking at career pathways for them after they finish school. So we actually have then our football jerseys have our artwork on it as well.
Amazing. And about the trucks and the shirts, do employees display and travel with the cars with the artwork on it everywhere they go? Like it's for all the trucks in APAC, for instance, or is there specific trucks, and how does it work?
Yeah, I think we have of our fleet, it might be 30% have the Indigenous artwork on it.
Okay.
And I did speak to one of our employees' parents just in relation to BGIS and career opportunities, and he was mentioning that he was himself and his son were looking at career paths, and the truck was actually sitting next door in their street, and he said, let's Google what this organization is, and let's have a look at what opportunities around employment that they might have, and that's what actually attracted him to the business, was that just seeing the truck driving around his street. So again, it's that moving billboard, it's that moving marketing campaign that that you see it catches your eye, and then it makes you ask, okay, what do they do? How can I be involved? So it's a really great outcome.
Yeah, it appeals to the eye right away.
correct. And it's quite out there, so it's not something that you walk past and you can miss, which is great again. So, and it actually, the story that it tells, obviously is a reflection of the organisation as well, which is great then for potential employees or people that want to work with BGIS.
Yeah, for sure. And do you have a lot of contacts with the communities, with Indigenous communities there?
Yeah, so where I work is actually in far north Queensland, so on the northern part of Australia in remote areas. I've lived here for 16 years and we're surrounded by traditional communities up here. So quite heavily involved, quite heavily engaged, but then also areas around Australia as well. We not just myself, but we have contracts that are then engaged within communities also. So within Australia, we have, the remote communities, then we have regional and then metropolitan. So it's quite a diverse.
It's the same here.
So someone sitting in Sydney would be like someone over there sitting in Toronto, but then the communities would be the same as, I think, your reservations over there.
Okay, great. Now we're seeing we have 2 Indigenous engagement managers in Canada. Vanessa Dreckman and Christopher Hans. Christopher Hans, he takes care of Western Canada, and Vanessa takes more care of the East. So it's big part of the cake. It's pretty big. If you can imagine, Canada is a pretty big country, so they travel quite a lot. But the team is getting better. They hired a new coordinator under Vanessa, Trela Freeze. So he's helping her, and more and more they're going. We see the work. They're going a lot in communities. They're building, even like in Ottawa, there is a reserve at 2 hours to the north, and so we're building contacts there. Like they're going there and more and more. Yeah.
And that's the best way to build Indigenous engagement is through relationships. So as I was saying earlier, between that corporate brand and that Indigenous brand, within the Indigenous brand, we empty out. We don't start with talking about business. We don't start talking about contracts. We actually go in and form those relationships and being open and honest as well. So that, there are some Indigenous businesses out there, given what we do as an organisation, that potentially we can't use. But we did actually have a success story, and if you don't mind me sharing, one of our contracts last week or the week before was actually at an employment forum, and we're speaking to a Indigenous job seeker, so someone looking for work. And given his skills, we weren't actually able to offer him any employment through BGIS. However, through one of our vendors, our state lead for New South Wales spoke to our vendors and said, look, we've got this really keen job seeker here with us. We can't actually offer him any positions because it doesn't sit within the areas of work that we do. Is this something that you would be open to? Could you have a meeting with him? And by the end of the day, they looked over and he was like jumping with joy in the corner, and he come back over to them and he said, I've actually got an interview with them, and then subsequently has been offered a position. So there's those sorts of things where you're out in the community, you're having a yarn with people. We may not be able to help you, so we're very honest with that. But hey, if we can't, here is someone that might be able to. So it's really around that relationship and those genuine and authentic outcomes. I'm all about generational change, which doesn't happen overnight. It's a very, very long journey. But by offering that person a position and a job, not with us, but with somebody else, that is what generational change is. Because by that person having a job and enjoying what they do and going to work every day, they're then going to teach their children. This is what you have to do to get ahead in life. So, and that's what is most important. So in Australia, our main focus is, again, around those opportunities is employment. But for something for myself, I often speak about is that generational change. By helping someone today, you really are changing generations.
Yeah, it's about communication, who you know, and
100%.
Grasping the opportunity, and just, as you did, inform the other vendor of of this person seeking a job, and they took it. So beautiful. So what challenges have you faced, and how are you able to overcome them in implementing Indigenous engagement initiatives?
So there has been a lot of hurdles to overcome over the course of the years. But the main thing for me is that I found, especially with BGIS, is I just don't stop asking. So I'm the voice of our people, I suppose you could say. So back when I first started with BGIS, as I mentioned, there wasn't a large Indigenous footprint within Australia, and it just started off with little things, very much educational piece with the organisation around doing acknowledgement of country. So when I first started, we never used to do those. The reasons why, the importance of the welcome to countries are the same. So when I first started and introduced that, I did a whole training piece for all of our employees across the company. And now it's gotten to the point that if someone doesn't do it, employees go, you should have really done the acknowledgement at the beginning of the meeting, which is that's a really, really great outcome. And there were little things throughout the course of the years where small things like our email signatures. I asked quite a few years ago whether we could have one of our tiles changed for the anniversary of the apology, for when our government apologised for their mistakes of the past. And at the time it was, no, we won't be doing that. So I just kept asking and kept pushing. And I'm always one to say, well, if the answer is no, that is fine, but why not? Like, why not? Why can't we do this? And now we're very, very fortunate enough. The marketing team, our laptop screens, for an example, year round have a piece of the artwork. So this middle portion of the artwork on our laptop screens. We celebrate Reconciliation Week and NAIDOC Week here in Australia every year. And marketing are now in front of planning, so they will come to me and say, this is what we've extracted from what the theme is this year, are you happy for us to run with this? And it's just that sort of progress to come from asking a lot of questions and asking a lot of whys to having a lot of no's to now having the organisation in a position that the leadership is proactive. And we really have shown over my 9 years of being here that from the top down, it's important. So that is where I think, as an organisation of any size, that if you want your company to be a reflection of who you are and who the people are, the leadership really need to promote and advocate that. And here in Australia, I couldn't be more proud of what our leadership team do in relation to that Indigenous engagement.
Yeah, and it's a thing you see. I think even more for you, because I think you're one step beyond us. In Canada, like as we discussed earlier, BGIS Australia, like the Indigenous engagement in Australia, in APAC, started, I think, 5 years before Indigenous engagement in Canada started. So you're one step above us, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Like, had a conversation with Wade, the director of Indigenous engagement in Canada, and he said at first, like, he had, as you experienced yourself, he had a lot of no's on all kind of projects. Like, okay, no, we're not sure. Okay, we don't know how it works. But then progressively, more and more yes, and more and more initiatives implemented. Yeah.
So as soon as I knew that Wade was coming on board, I actually reached out to him and said, look, do you want to meet once a month? Have a catch up, very relaxed. And from that, we've really, really supported each other, I think, through to now, and will be continuing into the future. And a lot of our history, and probably one of the biggest things that I've learned, is Canada's history and Australia's history isn't too dissimilar. There's a lot of similarities in there. So, and we often speak about, we might try something over here and it may or may not work, and then he might bring it over there, and it may or may not work. So it's that real collaborative piece. And I'm finding, especially because we both have that same background, and we both, both countries have the similar history, is that collectively we're getting a louder voice, and collectively people are hearing us more. And because we are all speaking that same language globally, I think that's where we're actually doing it quite well. So, we've just released our global policy on Indigenous engagement as well, which is amazing. So to have that base platform, whilst we do things slightly different, as I said, there's a lot of those similarities, and something that we're proud of globally as an organisation.
Yeah, And you were here like at the start of the program. Wade too was here.
Yeah.
He was the first. He was like the genesis of Indigenous engagement at BGIS. Like there might have been some projects here and there, but it wasn't standardized, you know.
Yes.
And,
Yeah. We're the same here. So when I first started, employee wise, I knew of myself and one other person within the whole of Australia that identified as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. Whereas now, you know, our stats have grown massively. And that has a lot to do with, again, that conversation piece. I often speak to our employees about making the uncomfortable comfortable. So, you know, here and potentially you may have the same issue over there, but sometimes some of the subjects can be a little bit uncomfortable and people don't want to speak about it and they're not too sure how to ask the questions. So by making the uncomfortable comfortable, by having my door open all the time, I've allowed employees to come to me and have open, genuine conversations. There's been times where, you know, employees may say, well, this is what I want to say. And I'm like, no, we don't, that's not how we speak. This is how we speak. And this is how we would then ask that question without offending anybody, which I think, again, as an organization, that thirst for knowledge around this is wonderful. But I also believe what we're doing today isn't good enough for tomorrow. So I always just feel like we're scratching at the surface because there is so much more we could be doing. But again, it is a long process, and having that vision and having the organization both locally here in Australia and now globally has really helped push that agenda. And we've also got New Zealand coming on board as well, and they're starting their journey. So they'll be, you know, where you were quite a few years ago. We're now starting on that journey with New Zealand, so which is amazing.
Wow, I even didn't know that BGIS had offices in New Zealand. So
across the whole country, which is very exciting, and we're expanding over there, which is amazing. So and they're potentially looking at doing something similar to what you did in Canada, was having a look at what our reconciliation action plan was here in Australia, because of the foundations and because what we're doing is the right thing to do. As you did, you extracted information and plans that were specific to Canada, and they're now looking at doing the same. Like, what can we now be doing in New Zealand that, you know, can improve for them as well, which is great.
Yeah, like Canada and Australia can inspire New Zealand to build their own program. And then they adjust it to their own realities, of course, but it's
correct. Correct. And theirs is also slightly different to Australia again as well. So again, they take out what they need to, and we have very different histories. They've already got a treaty over there. We don't. So there's all of these other things, layers that they then need to work through and make sure that they've got representing their people. But I meet with them as well. And as I did with Canada when you guys started to write yours, and just give examples of what didn't work, what does work. And I guess with having that, being the pioneer, I suppose, each country that then comes on board, you find that you get a little bit more traction, a little bit more quicker, because it's a trialed, we've tried it and it's worked. So let's try it in each country.
And I know a question that's asked a lot by people in the company is they're interested, they see many Indigenous engagement initiatives going on, and they're very curious. But we often receive the question, how can I help? They feel they want to help, they want to know more, they want to do their part, but it's like, how can I help? So what would you say to this?
So over here in Australia, so I, as the National Indigenous Engagement Manager, we have created state-based committees. So people from our contracts volunteer into that committee, which is absolutely amazing. And for anyone that reaches out, we put them in contact with those state leads and get them to join the committee. And my vision is to have one representative from every client contract that we operate in within that committee, because then they can filter that down into their own contract. So each of those people that are volunteering into that, and I say to them, it starts off as 1 hour a month until you get your head around what we actually do. It's around that engagement of Reconciliation Week and NAIDOC Week that we celebrate here in Australia. But then the next level on from that is the client is actually seeing what we're doing, and then the client wants to get involved, and then we're finding that we're having these dual deliverables where we're delivering what is required of us in our plan with our clients. So that's amazing, and that's a really, really great outcome, not just for us as an organization and our client as an organization, but again, the communities that we operate in, because then our clients are saying, well, how can we increase our employee representation? What did you do? And we're like, this is what we did, and this is the program that we have in place. And then they can start, emulating what we're doing and building on it.
Like you have proof, you have concrete stuff to show.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where that, it's almost a decade. So it's a 9-year journey it's been. And so we do have, strong evidence and strong cases on what has actually worked. And like I said previously, I think in the first 2 years of me working with them within the recruitment team, the stats just jumped astronomically around our Indigenous employee representation, because we started to ask the question as well. You don't know what you don't know. So you're asking people, do you identify? Do you want to join part of the committee? Do you want to be part of the advocacy group that we're forming on your basis or with your clients? Do you want to actually do a presentation? Do you want to present who you are and who your family are back into the client? So there's all these greater opportunities. And then from an employee's point of view, and especially being an Indigenous employee in such a large organization like BGIS, is outside of your voice being heard, but then it's very proud. It's a very proud moment for me to watch employees do it, but for someone that has actually done it as well, to actually get up and say, well, this is who I am, this is who I'm from, where I'm from, this is my story. And people even now go, I didn't know that. I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that's where you came from. And it's like, no, because these aren't conversations that we have on a daily basis. But, if we're then creating this path for the next generation, and I always say, I like to create a path for my children and their children, but I don't want them to walk fully on my path. They need to walk to a certain degree where they feel safe, and then they need to create their own path. So it's like those branches of the trees that we're never following forever in each other's footsteps. We provide that strong foundation for them to then build on.
Yeah. Cool. The perfect transition to my next question. What would you say to new Indigenous employees working at BGIS?
Well, we actually have, for Reconciliation Week and NAIDOC Week, our themes this year is now more than ever, and keep the fire burning, black, loud and proud. So for anyone that's coming on board, and especially for someone who's similar to myself and from a remote area, is walking into an organisation as large as what BGIS is, it can be quite intimidating and it can be quite daunting. So just remember to be yourself. Remember who you are. Remember why you are here. I often say to people also around, career progressions as well, as you may come in to the organisation as a receptionist, as an example, and this has happened. So with one of my employees, so came into the organisation as a receptionist, wanted a change, moved into property management, also learned a little bit about facilities management while she was doing it. We were a small team, so we were fortunate enough where we could, help each other out in that sort of instance. And then she went on to work for the client as their workplace manager. So there's that diversity. So, coming into an organisation this large has so many opportunities. You just need to look for it, and you need to find your voice and ask for it. And every time there is a no, and especially for the younger generation, in a very polite way, the answer is no, but why? What do I need to fix? What do I need to work on? Where do I need to improve? Go and really improve on those things. And the next time you ask, there may or may not be an opportunity, but keep those conversations going. So that employment is my background. So I really do enjoy that employment space. And especially then, like I was talking about, that generational change. So by even offering a young student coming out of school, finishing school, a new trade, you're making him the man that he's going to be tomorrow at work. So we need to really make sure that foundation is there. But I think an Indigenous person coming into BGIS is 100%. You can bring your full self to work. And that's probably across all of our D&I spaces, not just within the Indigenous space. We're very, very non-tolerant of people that don't accept our cultural backgrounds. We're obviously a very large organisation. I know here in Australia we're multicultural. It's amazing. It's wonderful. And what better way to build a company around that, because you've got so many diverse people that can bring new ideas and new initiatives. And something I actually said quite a few years ago is that us today, we're employing the CEOs of tomorrow. So the people that come into our organization, and especially with this whole tech phase, and if you're a little bit more mature than like I am, and you're like, I can't get my head around a lot of this tech, we really do need to listen to the younger people coming through, because they are going to be our CEO tomorrow. They are. That's just where the industry is going. So think big, dream big, and you'll get there.
Yeah, don't hesitate to reach out, like to
absolutely
to grasp take the opportunity. Yeah, there's support, as you say.
Yeah.
And Rikki, what is your vision? What are you trying to accomplish in your role?
So my vision for BGIS, as I said previously, was around getting the Indigenous brand within our corporate brand, which is amazing. I think we've done that now. So my next goal, especially here for Australia, is I would love to see us grow, and I would love to see us expand. So I would love to see Indigenous engagement, rather than sitting in a corporate and social responsibility. Volunteer groups. I would love to see, like you have over there, so different people from different areas that we're employing to have that focus. So long-term vision would be growing in that regard. But yeah, we'll see where everything takes us, and especially within our employment space as well, as creating those opportunities. And I'd love for one day to actually see maybe our managing director being an Indigenous person. That would be amazing.
Oh yeah, we'll get there. Do you have a mandatory training, like virtual training on Indigenous matter for employees in APAC, in Australia?
Yeah, so we have cultural awareness training that we have virtual, and then last year I did actually travel around the country and do in-person training with our employees. There were parts there where the client was actually asking whether they can get involved in that as well, which was good. So we have virtual and in-person cultural awareness training, and it really focuses around two aspects. Is one around the country where we're from, the truth telling of what actually did happen. And then we have more so the personal relationships. So if you're interviewing someone that is Indigenous, their mannerisms, or they may not look you in the eye, that doesn't mean that they're being disrespectful. That's actually a sign of respect. So there's those little things that cover the history, and then it covers the personal aspect as well.
Like how to connect.
Yeah. And also around our family structures, and it's quite funny. I can sit here and explain my family in a breath, and it makes sense to me. And then I've looked at other people, and they're like, what? That makes no sense. And so you sit down, and then you have to start explaining it to people. And that's what we added into our cultural awareness training, especially for our managers as well. Just in regards to, a lot of us don't have that mum and dad, nan and pop sort of structure within our family. We could have quite a few grandparents, quite a few mums and dads, aunties and uncles that may not potentially be blood related, kinship care. So there's all these other areas that we just wanted to educate, especially managers and our employees that don't identify, that if you are speaking to a colleague or an employee that does, and they are talking about this is normal. It's very normal for us. So but to open that door and have those conversations now, I think, is wonderful. And it really did, traveling around Australia last year, really did promote the knowledge sharing, and it really did promote people talking. So, it was a very much a conversation piece, and the feedback that we received from it was amazing as well, which is a good outcome.
Great. Well, thank you, Rikki. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye. Thank you for listening, everyone. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Take care and miigwech!